Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's focused session, How to Submit Certified Payroll in California, WH-347 and A-131, and DIR eCPR Best Practices. Wow, that was a lot. I'm Shauna Coronado, your host, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. And thank you for everyone. Hello, everyone, and telling us where you're all from. That's awesome. And this session is really packed with practical tips and real-world guidance to help you navigate both federal and California-specific certified payroll requirements. So let's give you a little platform tour. Before we dive in, here's how to get the most out of the webinar today. You can submit your questions anytime using the Q&A or chat tabs. So please submit your questions because we'll save time at the end for a live Q&A and answer as many questions as we can. We've also received some questions beforehand, and our fantastic chat moderator, Michaela, is here to support you. So please say hi to Michaela in the chat. And she's the one who's going to bring some of those questions forward that we've already received. And while I preview what we'll cover today, go ahead and tell us your role in the company. Are you a payroll manager, an HR pro, administrator, an owner, or something else? Tell us what you do at the company. It helps us tailor examples for whoever's in our virtual room. Now, we're joined today by Brian Kissel, Director of Solutions Consulting and a certified payroll expert here at eBacon. Brian works closely with construction companies across the country, helping them stay compliant with Davis-Bacon Act rules, state prevailing wage laws, and certified payroll challenges. All right, so today's session will cover the difference between federal WH-347 and California A-131 and DIR eCPR. Once again, that's a lot of words. Step-by-step guidance on how to complete each report accurately, best practices that reduce errors, save time, and avoid penalties, and of course, real-world tools that simplify certified payroll compliance. So let's give a quick shout out to these few folks in the chat who answered the call out above. Wow, okay, I'm seeing a lot of accounting payroll people, accounting managers, but even Thane is a compliance coordinator for GC. So we have all types of people coming here, all working together to figure out California payroll. All right, Brian, let's get started by breaking down what certified payroll actually looks like in California.
Sure. So basically in California, you have two options. If you're working on a federal project, you're going to complete the federal form. The state project, you're going to complete that A-131. Basically, every contractor or subcontractor that's working on a public works project is required to submit a certified payroll report to either the DIR or to their actual GC. With one exception to that rule, there is still the small ticket exemption in California, meaning that any project under $15,000 for maintenance or $25,000 for construction are not required to register that project with the DIR and still don't have to submit certified payroll reports.
All right. What's at stake for non-compliance?
Well, the biggest thing, obviously, when you're not compliant is fines and penalties. There are daily penalties as well as different fines. You can also be stopped from any bidding on any future projects. And of course, if you're not compliant, your GC can, of course, withhold payment for your work.
Oh, that makes sense. And debarment, no one wants that. That's a scary word. We are going to jump into a quick poll. Understanding certified payroll in California. So, how confident are you that you're paying the correct prevailing wage rates, including increases? So for all of you that are listening live right now, if you could answer that question, the answer choices are very confident, somewhat confident, not confident at all, and totally not applicable. See where you're at. And look, I have to peek above my camera to get a good look here. Somewhat confident. Oh, very good. Somewhat confident is winning. So you're here for a reason. You're trying to learn more about what you need so you can become more confident. All right, that makes sense. Okay, let's go to the next question real quick. Brian, we always hear about federal versus state confusion. What's one thing construction companies often miss when reporting to both agencies?
The biggest issue that we see a lot of times is the misclassification of employees, especially now with the new 347 on federal projects. If they're not filling out the information correctly, or they're not signing it correctly, or the correct person is not signing off on it, stuff like that. But you want to make sure that you're obviously using the correct form. So now obviously everyone knows that the 347 did change this year. Some GCs still require the old one because they're used to it. Some want the new one. So basically, you want to make sure you're using the form that is required by your general contractor.
Yeah, very good. And here we are on the guide to WH347 completion. Can you give us a few tips?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, up top, you want to make sure you have the payroll details, the project details and your information on there. And then as you are filling out that employee information, you want to make sure you're doing it by classification. So you may actually have the same employee on there multiple times if they are doing different things. You want to fill in the correct hours and wages, and make sure when you are filling in the different rates that you're putting on there for fringes and stuff like that, you are putting the hourly rate, not the total amount that you are calculating.
Okay, let's jump to the completion of the WH347. What are your tips for this?
Yeah, so on the completion of it, you want to make sure obviously it is signed and certified, and make sure that everyone is classified correctly, that you're not putting any incorrect fringe rates on there or anything like that. And obviously you want to make sure that the correct signature is on that form, so that when you are submitting it, you're not ever getting any pushback to you from your contractors.
Well, there you go. And I want to let everyone know who's listening right now, you can go to our website, eBacon.com, and you can search the WH347. We have a video that gives you a very detailed instructional guide on how to complete the WH347, and that might help you. Now, Brian, you mentioned a few common WH347 errors. What's the most overlooked mistake you see that causes major headaches down the road?
It's definitely that classification of the actual worker. So if you are looking at your wage determination and you see that there's a laborer in multiple groups, you want to make sure you're selecting the appropriate group, so that way you're paying the right rates. And again, you're not going to get any pushback because you put them as a laborer group 1, but their task that they were doing that day put them up in a higher laborer group with a higher rate.
Hmm. Before we go to the next slide, I see that there's a few people that are, America, you're asking if the connection is lost. And Lisa, you said there is an echo. We are not hearing that. So we hear it very clearly. Thank you for letting us know. If anyone else is experiencing that, if you could tell us, I'd appreciate it, because that way in the future, we'll make sure we can correct it. Okay, in the meantime, Brian, if you can go on to the next slide, which is submitting DIR eCPR in California.
Certainly. So as everyone knows, with the exception of the small ticket exemption, everyone is required to submit through the eCPR website on the DIR effective August 1st. And so you want to make sure, if you haven't already done so, that you go ahead and get yourself registered for the DIR platform. Because obviously if you're not registered, you cannot even start the process. Once you have registered it and actually link it to a project, you'll be able to actually enter that payroll data, and you want to make sure obviously you're double and triple checking it. If there are any required fringe benefit details, you're submitting those correctly as well. And then you're going to certify and submit that report, and you want to make sure you're doing that at a timely basis, so that way you're never getting behind or having to try and report multiple weeks at once. And if you are lucky enough that your payroll provider is providing you with an XML file, or you're getting that from a different platform, that submission is so much easier, because all you have to do is upload that file and then you simply certify it.
Understood. And what's your advice for companies submitting payrolls for the very first time through the DIR system?
Take your time, make sure you're double and triple checking everything, because the worst thing that can happen is you certify something incorrectly and now you've got to go back and amend it.
Makes perfect sense. All right, we're going to do another poll. Michaela is helping me out with that. What's your biggest current challenge with California certified payroll? And this is for everyone who's listening. Is it submitting WH347 or the eCPR correctly, keeping up with changing wage determinations, fringe tracking, avoiding errors? We don't currently do certified payroll. I bet you all do certified payroll. I'm looking around my around my camera to see. Keeping up with the changing wage determinations or fringe tracking seems to be the winner here. And boy, are wage determinations difficult. You know, so many different numbers and hard to keep up with for sure. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. All right. Brian, 4 key steps for accurate certified payroll submission.
Absolutely. And as I've mentioned a few times, you want to make sure you're reviewing that and double and triple checking that all employee details are there, your hours are correct, wages and fringe benefits before you're actually submitting that into the DIR. If, again, you are lucky enough to get that XML file, the electronic upload is super easy and much more preferred. But if you are still going to have to do it manually, you want to make sure you're doing that, again, timely. And then because DIR does have so many years to come back and audit history, you want to make sure you're retaining all of your records, both your fringe benefit statements, your certified payroll reports, and your statement of non-performance. And then finally, make sure you are confirming the receipt. You're keeping a copy of that actual submission receipt, because a lot of times your GC is going to require that to show that you are in compliance, and making sure that everything is submitted to the DIR so that you're not getting stuck holding the bag waiting for payment.
What's, in your opinion, what's one best practice that every team should be doing regardless of the company size?
Honestly, I would try to make sure you're getting those payrolls uploaded as quickly as you can, or input onto the DIR as quickly as you can. So what a lot of our clients that we work with do is they'll literally just put an Outlook reminder or a Google Calendar reminder, just to say, okay, make sure you're submitting payroll. You don't have to wait until a specific day. As soon as you get those reports ready, you can upload them or input them onto the DIR that same day.
Very good. California wage determinations and prevailing wage.
Yeah, we saw that was kind of a big ticket item on that last poll that we did. So the California wage determinations, as everyone knows, you've got your double asterisk or your single asterisk determinations. So you want to make sure that you are always mining the appropriate rate. The wage determination does stay in force for the life of the project based on the advertised date of the job. So even though it does have some double asterisk determinations, which will have scheduled increases every year for about 3 years, so you want to make sure you're maintaining the rates appropriately, that your fringe benefit rates with the allocations from the DIR are on there correctly. And then also, obviously, you want to make sure you're maintaining your apprenticeship ratios for those jobs that are apprenticeable. And I always have to joke and tell people, the way you know that is because it's got either a pound sign or a hashtag. And I have to tell it both ways, because Michaela knows what a hashtag is. Well, Sean knows what a pound sign is.
That works best for everybody. Let's talk about fringe benefits. What's the easiest way for a company to track them and stay audit ready?
So the easiest way, what most companies do, is they'll just take that entire prevailing wage rate, which includes just that base rate, and then all the different fringe buckets in California. So you've got your health and welfare, your pension, your paid holidays, your vacation, and also your training fund. So the easiest way to do it would be to just subtract your training fund right out of the total requirement, because that's going to be paid off to your apprenticeship committees. And then what most customers do is they'll just pay the entire amount on the employee's paycheck. There are ways around that, and what we like to talk about is you can use a fringe trust, which is a way that you can still stay in compliance, but you're going to save as a company, because you're not having to put those on the paycheck. So you're not having to match Social Security and Medicare. You're not having to put it on your workers' comp or your general liability audit. And a lot of times these fringe trusts offer different ways that an employee can pick and choose what they want to do with that money. Some offer retirement type accounts. Some offer supplemental unemployment. Just keep in mind, if you look at a supplemental unemployment plan, though, those are subject to annualization. So based on that, you can't always take 100% of your fringes and put them in there.
What are really the top errors, common certified payroll mistakes?
Again, the biggest one that you're going to see is this misreporting of that workers' classification, because, again, as we all know, looking at those wage determinations, you've got to find out literally what they are doing on the job site to select what group they should be in order to actually pay them. Another big one that we do see is incorrect overtime or fringe benefit calculations. Just in case you are new to the prevailing wage space, you want to make sure for overtime, especially in California where you have the 8-hour overtime and then the 12-hour double time, that you're only using that base rate to calculate it, and then you add on your fringes as straight time. So it would be your base rate times time and a half, plus then the fringes at the regular fringe rate. You're not putting those towards overtime. And then finally, missing or late reports, you want to make sure you are submitting those timely because they are obviously required by the state of California, and also to make sure you are getting paid on a timely basis.
Missing reports are no good. And if a company has like a misclassified worker or left off fringe pay, how fast do they need to act, and what should they do to fix it exactly?
So as soon as an error is discovered, they should act very quickly. You want to make sure that you are getting those payrolls amended, because again, if for some reason you don't pay for or upgrade and correct what they should have been paid, not only can your GC be on the hook, but also you can be on the hook for penalties and interest to both the state and the employee. So you want to act as quickly as possible. And what you're going to do is basically run a restitution, which is everyone's favorite curse word when it comes to prevailing wage, because you have to go back and fix the history, the time card, the job setup, and then run a supplemental payroll in order to correct and get amended reports for submission to both the DIR and your GC.
That could be overwhelming. How payroll software simplifies compliance. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so most payroll systems do have some way to do a WH-347. That's the federal one. That's the easiest one. Not everyone can do the A131 or create the actual XML file for the DIR. So make sure you're looking at the appropriate information that they can put out. But you want to make sure that obviously when you are creating that payroll, you're going to be able to get those reports directly from the system. Otherwise, what's the point of using a third party like that? So other than that, you're going to get basically built-in audit-ready documentation for compliance and make sure you have everything stored. Most systems will keep those in there as well, so you don't have to keep a paper copy, but it's always a good idea to have those. But the other nice thing is a lot of systems have a built-in prevailing wage and fringe benefit tracking, so you're not having to manually do that. You calculate the rates or change those scheduled increases. You're able to actually just rely on the system to actually save you time and money to make sure you're always paying appropriately.
Mm-hmm. And well, software seems like a game changer, really. And can you share a quick example of a client who saved time or avoided penalties by automating this process?
Great question. It's actually one of my favorite ones. We actually have a client that was doing everything manually. They were using ADP, they were doing paper timesheets, pulling the wage determinations manually. They had about 50 employees, and it was taking their controller anywhere from 40 to 50 hours a week just to do the payroll. When they came on with eBacon, because of the wage automation and the internal time clock that we have, it was able to save them almost 45 hours a week. So it was taking them 45 minutes to an hour in order to process from start to finish. And they were able to actually do more revenue generating stuff for the actual company, and also were able to actually keep up with what their actual job was, and making sure that their books were up to date. And she actually started taking on additional safety related projects because, well, she had so much free time.
Oh, there you go. Free time is good time. All right. Expert tips for streamlining certified payroll. Give us some streamline tips.
So obviously to streamline, you want to make sure as much as you can do automatically that you can do. So if you are able to actually use electronic time cards and a payroll software with those compliance tools in there, it's going to really save you so much time and effort. Again, make sure you're setting up those automated reporting reminders. It can be done using your Google Calendar or your Outlook calendar. You want to make sure your fringe benefit statements are always updated, and that you're as stuff is changing, you are updating those fringe benefit statements as well. And then double, and I even say triple check. Make sure you are 100% accurate before you hit submit on those, both the 347s and your eCPRs on the DIR. And then obviously stay informed on the California prevailing wage changes. Those are really important. If you are not already getting the email link from the DIR with updates and instructions, it's definitely a good topic. And one of the things that you're going to see in the packet that you're going to get is a link to the DIR, which has training topics and videos for how you use their actual eCPR platform.
Yes, and just so he noted the packet you're going to get, I will tell you at the end, after our Q&A, where you can get all the freebies and helpful tips. Okay, to Brian, though, one more expert tip I would love to ask you. You shared, no, excuse me, forgive me. I want to ask the audience. Let's ask the audience a question. What's one expert tip Brian shared that you're going to try next week? I want you to drop it in the chat and inspire someone else to do the same. We'd like to get some of these tips rolling for your businesses to make things easier and more helpful. All right, let's jump into Q&A. We have so many questions happening over on the side over here. And so just so you know, this might take us over the 30-minute mark. And we had scheduled 30 minutes, but we'll just keep going. We'll just keep answering them, and we'll try to hit everyone that we can. So thank you for keeping them coming throughout the session. All right. It's time for me to take a look at some of the questions. And I think that Michaela is prompting them up for me. Someone asked, what about the small ticket exemption, meaning any project under $15,000 for maintenance and $25,000 for construction that do not have, oops, I wasn't able to finish reading the question, Michaela.
That's okay. Actually, that one was one we did address earlier on. So the actual question was, has that now changed? So no, the small ticket exemption is still in force. So if there is a project that you're working on for maintenance under $15,000 or $25,000 for construction, that is not required to be registered or reported with the DIR.
Okay, great. Next question, Michaela. Jenna asked, how do you submit an XML as a final CPR on the DIR?
That is a great question, and it depends on how it's being created. So if you are using a software like LCP Tracker or your payroll company is providing it, typically if you put an end date on the actual project, the system will mark it as final for you. If it does not, you are going to have to manually do that through the DIR using their system.
I got it. Next question.
And then actually, before we bring that next question up, I wanted to address as well, everyone knows the DIR and how much fun they are. And since they did update the actual website for submission, you may unfortunately find a time where that XML file is not going to upload, and that is 100% on the DIR side. That's not going to be based on what the system is using or creating for you. Is that the DIR is the one who has to fix that actual upload file.
Understood. Can you, Michaela, can you show that question to us again, please, from Jamie?
I think I was answering it before it came up.
Okay, yeah. Right now, when I use the eBacon XML file to upload to the DIR, the XML file doesn't complete the payroll information section. Is eBacon working on that?
Yeah, so the XML file that they're accepting, it has not changed. It is the actual receiving end on the DIR side. It's not eBacon. So we've actually had our file vetted through the DIR. They say it's 100% perfect. It is definitely on their side.
Okay. All right. Next question, Michaela. I have a question on the deduction section on the A131 form. Should the dues be grouped under the deduction due section or under other? Right now, eBacon is grouping them under other.
So yeah, the other section is kind of your catch-all. If for some reason we are putting them in that bucket, it is basically able to take all leftover deductions and putting them there. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the dues bucket.
Understood. All right, next question. When adding an employee to the DIR site, if the craft is roofer to journeyman, what is the classification?
That's a great question, and unfortunately, when they rolled out that new website, it was definitely it was definitely harder to do because they actually added so many more classifications that were not even on the wage determinations. For that, unfortunately, you would have to either check it with the DIR to confirm, or with your general contractor, because they're going to be the ones who are actually paying the appropriate rates, and the DIR is the one who's going to make sure you've got the right classification.
So now, is that classification then automatically built into the eBacon software?
It is, again, those would have to be, you still have to pick and choose which classification you're going to use. eBacon doesn't actually advise which classifications to use, just because there are so many, and obviously you, as the contractor, know what you guys are doing versus what eBacon, we can tell you one thing and it could be something else, and so we don't actually give advice as to which.
Yes, yes, this works great. All right, Michaela, next question. Do I put other if nothing matches up with the list of classifications?
I've not actually seen an other classification, but basically, I would again recommend you check with a compliance person who's going to be able to help you better determine which classification should be used, just because other is so generic and broad that for compliance purposes, I'm not sure that the DIR or your GC would know exactly what that you rate should have been. So therefore, how are they going to know if it was correct?
Mm-hmm. Next question. I've not been reporting 0 wages for weekly payroll. Do I need to go back to those weeks and report no wages paid?
That's a great question, Donna. And yes, you really should. You want to make sure, even for weeks that you're not working, that you are submitting that statement of non-performance. And on the eCPR website, it's as simple as going in, selecting the week, and it asks you, is this a work week or was this a no work week? You just want to select no work and certify it, because you want to make sure you have everything submitted from week 1 to all the way to the last week that you are on the payroll. It's got to be done in sequential order.
Makes sense. Michaela? Kathy asked, do you integrate with timekeeping systems?
We do. Integration is not the best word I like to use. We are able to import from different timekeeping platforms. Basically, we've got just a file format that you would have to get the time into. Basically, in 2 different formats. We've got a horizontal and a vertical one, and then you can either do it for the entire week or do it by day, and then import that in. We do also maintain all of the wage determinations from both the DIR and SAM.gov. So basically, when you assign that wage determination to the project, it has the appropriate rates along with those scheduled increases when those are required.
Michaela, next question. Can you please further explain the fringes trust? I know you mentioned we do not have to include this in specific audits, and this is from Alejandra.
Perfect, Alejandra. Yeah, so with a fringe trust, and eBacon offers a bona fide trust as well. Because you're not actually paying those fringes on their paycheck, it's not subject then to Social Security and Medicare, workers' comp insurance, or general liability insurance. So you're still in compliance because you're paying those fringes for that employee. You're just putting them into a trust versus on their paycheck. So it's definitely a big money saver to a company, because you're saving anywhere from 10 to 25% per dollar, pardon me, by putting it into the fringe trust. Now, inside of those trusts, you are going to see different options. So with eBacon's trust, it is going to allow employees to invest towards retirement. They can save for dependent care or first-time home purchase. We've got a health reimbursement account. But the way we write it as well is we do allow for in-service distributions. So that employee, instead of them saying, oh, you're taking all my money and locking it away, they're able to actually request to get that money back out. And then what happens then is it's a taxable event to the employee, but since it's not on your payroll, it's still not subject to that overhead or the burden rate we just talked about. So it's still going to save the company money. The employee is going to pay those taxes when that distribution happens. They'll get a separate tax form from the trust that they'll use with their W-2 at the end of the year for their tax returns.
Yes, I see Debbie. Debbie, you mentioned this meeting is timing out. We're not going to turn off. We're going to keep answering questions, just so you know. Okay. A follow-up question to the XML file not completing the payroll information section from Jamie. Would you recommend manual entry until this bug is worked out, or would we be considered compliant if using eBacon's XML file that was verified as okay by the DIR?
So we never want you to have to manually enter anything onto the DIR, just because with having the XML file, it is going to be easier for you. With regards to staying in compliance, if there are issues with that upload file, then again, I would contact the DIR and find out why you're having that issue, because it is not the actual file itself. It's an issue on their end, and so they'll have to be able to help you with that. With regards to staying in compliance, obviously, if it's airing out and it's not updating the payroll information, you want to make sure, obviously, that you are getting that in there as some way that you can. And so if it does mean that you have to do it manually, then unfortunately that would be the best way to go.
Understood. Next question. Under the new DIR eCPR reporting portal, there now are options for data input. There's the contracting company, and there's a breakout of the school job locations. Oops, can you redo that for me, Michaela? Here we go. Can one simply download the eBacon certified report for each reporting period in the DIR eCPR portal via the contracting company option?
It's a very, very good question as well, and the answer is yes. not a long answer, but the answer is yes.
Yay, that's good. All right, next question. What if we pay over scale? Do we record the rate we paid or the applicable prevailing wage rate?
Excellent question as well, Stephanie. So you want to make sure when you are reporting, you're reporting exactly what you paid, not what the prevailing wage rate is, because you have to still put that gross to net on there along with the check number or voucher number. So you want to make sure it's showing exactly what you paid. They never care if you pay over. They only care, obviously, they definitely care if you pay under. So definitely put what you are actually paying.
Very good. July 1 is when we just got the new fringe benefit statement figures and fees. How do I know that information is updated in the DIR?
So the scheduled increases for the fringes and the base rate are all located on the DIR. They are not always the greatest at coming out on July 1st and saying, here's those allocations, but they do release them as quickly as possible. They don't like seeing eBacon come across their caller ID, because we are hounding them to get that information on a daily basis until we actually do have it for each trade. But with those new fringe benefits allocations, they will show on the DIR under that scheduled increase tab.
Watch out, Brian's on the phone. All right, next question, Michaela. Can you please go over what is required by owner operator, so as a GC, we are sure they are submitting correctly?
Yes, absolutely. So as an owner operator, basically they are still required to report, even if they are taking, just they're not actually paying themselves a W-2 wage and they're paying, like, say, a K-1 or 1099. They still have to pay themselves the appropriate rate plus the fringes, even if they're not withholding taxes. But yes, they still are required to report on the A131 or the WH347 in a timely basis, and submit those to their general contractors.
Very good. We do service. Katerina says we do service only, no new construction. Would the project be based on the contract we have with the customer or the individual jobs we perform for them?
So the contract itself, if it's a service job, if it's still under the prevailing wage rate, the prevailing wage project, then it would be there. If it's under the Service Contract Act, it would be the Service Contract Act wage determination. And if it's just, you're doing work that's outside of the scope of the prevailing wage project, you could just not have to do any reporting on that, and that would just be paid at their appropriate private rate of pay.
Next question. How do I get on that updated mailing list for DIR? We ran into problems with the job we did 2 years ago because I didn't get notice of a change in the prevailing wage.
So they're super fun when it comes to the prevailing wages on the DIR. They're not going to send you an email that says here's an update or a scheduled increase. That is unfortunately still at your discretion to go on to the DIR's website and look at it, find out if it's a double asterisk determination, and then as you see when it's coming due, you're going to want to make sure you get those rates. The update mailing list I was talking about is more for the eCPR platform, where as they are doing changes and updates to it, they're sending out mailings to all of the users so that way they have it. But again, for those scheduled increases, realistically, that is on you to be able to get those rates from.
But this is like one of those things you were saying that it's best to put a calendar update to yourself. And then if you had a, say every 6 months, a regular calendar update, then you would go out and check the numbers is what you're suggesting, right?
Yep. Or you can use a platform like eBacon, which does maintain those as well.
There you go. eBacon is the place.
Get a little plug in there for eBacon.
Another question for us, Michaela. How do you attach fringe benefits statement from Debbie?
So the fringe benefit statement is really going to be submitted to your general contractor. When you are uploading them, when you are submitting to the DIR, it is part of the actual A131, so you're not really actually having to attach a file to it, but it is something you want to make sure you're keeping on file and internally as well as providing to your general contractor.
All right. How seamless are Sage to eBacon payroll uploads?
Also a great question. Sage has multiple products, so it depends on the actual system that you're using. Sage 100 Contractor is actually built on the same back engine, which is a SQL database as eBacon. So we are able to actually create a stored procedure that will feed it into the Sage 100. For the other platforms, they accept an import. We would actually create a file that you would import in, and that would take care of journal entries, job costing, employee costing, and stuff like that.
Understood. Next. As the DIR eCPR portal just became operable again as of June 30th, how is prior reporting periods recorded, or how are, I should say? Does the primary contracting company report directly based upon the previously certified report submitted to them by the subcontractor? And if so, how does the subcontractor obtain copies of these reports? And this is from Giandra.
So that is a rough question. And again, the DIR, you're right, just became operable again June 30th. They have not started or required a prior period, and there's still a search option issue that is not allowing us to go back and look at historical ones. What most contractors have been doing is actually just maintaining a copy of the paper report on the A131 for the time period that the website was down.
There you go. And Debbie asks, what's the eBacon website again? It's ebacon.com. Pretty easy there. You can go right there and take a look. You can search for, remember, the WH347 and the full guide and video. You can find that on our website. And you can also search in our reference section and learn all kinds of tips and ideas. And I think we have another question, Michaela, from Donna. It says, can I go back and amend an eCPR to reflect that payroll was the final payroll on the project?
Yes. So you're able to go back and pull up a historical one and edit it, and then you're able to actually mark it as final there.
Okay, great. Michaela, is that all our questions? Yay, she gave me the thumbs up. I'm seeing her on camera over here. Terrific. That's all our questions. Okay, now comes the best part. We are going to wait, there's one last question that just came in. First, I'm going to tell you, don't forget to download your exclusive certified payroll resource kit. And you can get it here. You see that little get here button, click on that and you can download it. So before we head out, there are two more questions that just came in. So I'm going to try and go ahead and answer them. And these are the last two, okay? Jenna asked, Brian, we have used, hold on, I just lost it. We have used the Fringe Trust for a few years before we started using the full payroll as of this January. And I've had multiple complaints from employees about their taxes in regards to taxes owed. Can I refer them to eBacon regarding tax issues that I can't seem to fix? I'm not sure this is just an issue or their tax setup.
More often than not, it's their tax setup. So because we are withholding what's required by the IRS, which is basically 20% for federal income tax, 10% for an early withdrawal fee, and then 2% for California. But it is just like on a regular payroll, it's the employee's responsibility to make sure they're withholding enough out of their full pay to ensure that. But typically, we don't see very many times where there is taxes that are owed. So unfortunately, we would actually probably refer them to a CPA versus us, because there's not really much that we can do without having them just file a new W-4 to increase their withholdings on their regular paycheck.
Daniel asks, is there a way to manually amend an eCPR that was an XML upload?
So when you do your restitution, you should get a brand new XML, and that's going to actually have like week number 24-1. So when you upload that, it's automatically going to know that that is a restitution and an amendment.
Very good. Now, I have on the screen right now the Institute of eBaconology. It is our resource page. And Carol just sent another question saying, what resources and tips do you recommend for someone just starting prevailing wage processing? If you see on that page that there is a little square that says prevailing wage on the website itself, if you hover over that, it will turn orange. You can click on it and you can find all our articles and information about prevailing wages. But we are also sending you, as a part of you, if you get here, remember you have to click that button and download information. We're sending you some resources that will help you with all of this. And Brian, this is really our last question. Do you have any further guidance for Carol about where else she can find out, being a newbie to prevailing wage, what she should do?
So being new to the prevailing wage space, it's a fun place to be, let me tell you. But yeah, no, if you've got questions or anything like that, you can certainly reach out. We'd be more than happy to have a conversation and answer any questions that we can for you. And we can also obviously take a look at our services with you if you have any questions or things about that.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much for joining us for this information-packed session. Wow. And a big thank you to Brian Kissel for sharing his insights and guidance today. But I'm applauding Michaela. You were fantastic, helping us out with getting all the questions up. Very, very good. And so live attendees, again, don't forget to download your exclusive certified payroll resource kit by using that button. And if you want a smoother, simpler way to handle certified payroll compliance, visit eBacon.com and check out that webinar resource hub. And until next time, stay compliant, stay confident, and we'll see you in the next session.